So what do you do when you're 15 years down the road in the world of indie rock? 6 albums in, great fan base, consistent touring schedule of nice-sized venues. Well, most just keep on doing what they've been doing. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? But twin sisters Tegan and Sara Quin thought differently. First, they decided to take a break after the last go-around for their record Sainthood in 2009, spending some time just hanging out as sisters rather than as performing partners. Secondly, they decided to try writing together, something they'd not done in the past. And thirdly, they wanted to create a new sound, a pop sound, something completely different from the folk and indie rock band sounds of their past albums. And this week, they unveiled that new work called Heartthrob. It is unabashedly and unashamedly a pop record, but a Tegan and Sara pop record. Their songs are just as clever as ever, but the sound is now rhythmic, synth-driven, and great fun. To talk about Heartthrob and play songs both old and new, Tegan and Sara join us this week as our in-studio guests.
We talked about 12 years ago.
Oh, my God.
In 2000.
That's impossible. We were just born.
Yeah, a dozen years ago on this business of art. In fact, it was shortly before your birthdays that year, so you were 19.
Oh, Lord.
Okay.
Call me.
All right. You know, I followed along, as we all did, for a dozen years, and then suddenly this record comes out. There's this monumental shift, and I thought, this is fantastic. I got to talk to him again, and I got to do it now.
That's amazing.
Thank you for coming back. As we lead into Heartthrob, if you could tell us where you were at after the cycle was over for Sainthood.
When we finished Sainthood, Sara was, had just moved, got an apartment in New York and got into a good relationship and, wanted to sort of hang out at home and not do a ton of writing right away. And I was sort of in the opposite. I was like almost immediately, as soon as we got off the road, was jumping into writing again. And we went on a writing trip together about 4 months after Sainthood ended, and within about 30 minutes of getting into the space, got into a fight. And then Sara wrote me an email and said, I want to just hang out. I want to hang out in the city. I want you to see my house and my life and hang out with me, and let's just go get dinner and actually just enjoy our lives for a little while before we start working. So the headspace that we were in when we actually physically started sitting down to write songs was one that was very relaxed and very clear. I think we weren't just rushing to make a new record. We weren't trying to keep the momentum going or capture something that was lost, like anything like that. It was truly a process of decompressing from the road, decompressing from 5 straight years of touring and working. We put out a live record and a DVD and sort of was using that as a bookend, like a chapter ender for that first decade of our career. And so Heartthrob is truly, I think, a fresh start for us.
With this record, I know that initially when Tegan started sending me some material, it certainly felt premature for me, and I wasn't necessarily. I always say this. I don't think Tegan writes bad songs, so it wasn't that I wasn't feeling her material because they weren't good songs, but I didn't hear what I needed to hear to inspire me yet. And part of that was probably personal and just fatigue from touring, and then some of it I think was Tegan kind of just quickly sort of shotgun writing a bunch of songs and then sending them to me, and me thinking oh. No, I don't hear it yet. I just don't feel that spark. And, I know that we've had a sort of upward trajectory our whole career, but I certainly felt with the Con and Sainthood that we had sort of come over some sort of peak or some sort of hill. And I was really afraid that we would just plateau. And I knew that whatever we were going to do with this record needed to be something pretty substantial, and it needed to be pretty unexpected for people like even yourself, people who've been around. And it's not that I don't think that people are rooting for the project, but at some point you have to be pushing yourself and taking risks for long-term vested people to still get excited.
One time in your life you've got the route in hand and the map is stuck. They said it's not your fault, the ties are tied. Camera moves and your driver's been pulled. And I have always felt this, and I could never hear it. So I turn it up and turn it on and turn it down. Always the volume, always the words. Review the press and tell it like it is. Your life is hype, your love is hype. And I will clench my own fist, and I will always wait. There's more than blood that beats through my heart, and my hands and my feet stuck between my tongue and my teeth. We don't know, so we wait for tomorrow. We don't know. so we wait for tomorrow. We don't know, so we only go forward. 2 times in your life you will trace the edge and sink your toes in. Review my present, tell like it is. My life is hype, my love is hype. Well, I will clench my own fist, and I will always wait. Well, there's more than blood that beats through my heart, and my hands and my feet stuck between my tongue and my teeth. We don't know, so we wait for tomorrow. We don't know, so we wait for tomorrow. We don't know, so we only go forward. I'd wait up all night for you. I'd wait up all night for you. I wait up, I wait up, I wait up, I wait up for you. Yeah. I wait up, I wait up, I wait up. We don't know, so we wait for tomorrow. We don't know, so we wait for tomorrow. We don't know, so we only go forward. 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 We don't know, so we only go forward.
I wanted to start out today's segment by going all the way back to 2000 with a session that we did with Tegan and Sara back then, right when they were making their debut. They were 19 when they recorded that song, which was on their first major album called This Business of Art, the song called Hype. Tegan and Sara Quin are in studio guests this week on Acoustic Cafe.
The writing that you were going to try to do, or the writing that you actually did do after having some downtime, after just having time hanging out as sisters in real life rather than in artistic life. Were the songs that came out of that what we are now hearing on Heartthrob, or was there sort of a process to get to these songs?
Some of them are certainly songs that came out of the initial writing period, but we do write a considerable number of songs for each record. So there's sort of a, like one of the songs on the record was one of the first songs I wrote, I'm Not Your Hero, but Now I'm All Messed Up was probably one of the last pieces that I added to the record. And same with How Come You Don't Want Me. They were both like really late additions to the process. So, I think that we've realized over time that the more you write, the better chance you're going to have a higher number of good songs. On past records, there wasn't necessarily an emphasis on quantity. It was about quality. But if you don't have a large quantity, then you're sort of marking on a curve, I guess, or selecting on a curve.
If I understand correctly, this time you actually really did write together.
We did,
which
yeah.
was new.
Like Sarah was saying, I was sending a lot of songs, and Sarah wasn't, ready to start writing yet. But when she finally sort of got on the page, one of the things that we had talked about doing was collaborating a bit more. And some of the feedback we'd been given by, some of the people we trusted in our circle, but also some producers we'd met with, they were really they sort of had pointed out our bridges. They called them middle eights, but they said, your middle eights, that's what, you need to work on, like your middle eights. And I remember going home and typing in middle eight into Google because I was like, what is a middle eight? I'm like the worst. I was like, oh, bridges. Okay. So for a bunch of my songs, I literally just sent the middle eight wide open and asked Sarah to fill them in. So for me, on my side of the record, it's a really collaborative work for sure. And, Drove Me Wild, we also co-wrote with another artist on that. And How Come You Don't Want Me, we also co-wrote with another artist. And one of our producers, Greg Kirsten, he helped on Closer, to co-write the chorus. And it was the first time we'd ever done that. I mean, usually you get into the studio, you have your foundation, you have your blueprint, you just race through it. It's right. Costing you money, time is money. You're just the whole time. But this time, we were so well prepared going in, and we were working with such, incredible people that we actually had time to do things like, let's write a B chorus, let's extend this section, let's try new things. So it's definitely by far our most collaborative album.
And it sounds like that sort of sparked the ethic here. If you wanted new, you had to start with the songwriting, let's do something new that we haven't done before.
And it was sort of a throwback as well. There's a lot, we pretty much sing, over half the songs we're both singing almost the entire song. There's a lot of harmonies, a lot of interplay between the vocals, which is very important, I think, to our fans. So.
Standing where I am now, standing up at all. I was used to feeling like I was never gonna see myself at the finish line, hanging on to parts of me, hanging on it all. I was used to seeing no future in my sight line. Sometimes it feels like they wanna remind me, send all those feelings after me. I'm not their hero, but that doesn't mean that I wasn't brave. I never walked the party line, doesn't mean that I was never afraid. I'm not your hero, but that doesn't mean we're not one and the same. Feeling like I am now, lighting up the hall. I was used to standing in the shadow of a damaged heart, learning all I know now, losing all I did. I never used to feel like I'd be standing so far ahead. Sometimes it feels what I recovered you lost, sending your peaceful arms to me. I'm not their hero, but that doesn't mean that I wasn't brave. I never walked the party line, doesn't mean that I was never afraid. I'm not your hero, but that doesn't mean we're not one and the same. Sometimes it feels like the side that I'm on plays the toughest hand, holds the longest stand. Sometimes it feels like I'm all that they've got, gets so hard to know I'm not what they want. Sometimes it feels like the side that I'm on plays the toughest hand, holds the longest stand. Sometimes it feels like I'm all that they've got, it's so hard to know I'm not what they want. I'm not their hero, but that doesn't mean that I wasn't brave. I never walked the party line, doesn't mean that I was never afraid. I'm not your hero, but that doesn't mean we're not one and the same. I do my best to walk the finest line till I've had all that I can take.
The song I'm Not Your Hero, the original in a completely different form you will find on the new album, the pop album, called Heartthrob. From our in-studio guests this week, Tegan and Sara, joined by Ted Gowans on guitar and John Spence on piano.
Now to the sound of the record. Now, what you've done here today has absolutely nothing to do with the sound on this new record. And I'll tell you what, we're going to highlight that because we're going to play some of the stuff from the new record as well so they can hear. I want to call this pop in the best sense, meaning huge hooks and, cool sounds that you can't really identify. Like your other albums, people could go, yeah, I can see that. That's a guitar and that's a drummer and that's cool sounds that you're not really sure what it is. And, not dance music, but danceable rhythms.
Yeah.
So
we should get you to write the bio for the record.
So done that way, you went after 3 different producers, and I thought it was interesting to note that you specifically wanted people who would not link you to some previous sound and be wedded to that.
It was important, especially for me, because I have a tendency, I think, to slip into like what feels comfortable, and I tend to probably go a little bit off the beaten path a bit more, and whereas Tegan, I think, has a willingness to sort of aim for something more straightforward and deliberate, and I wanted a producer who was going to be able to say like, yes, this is cool, it's fine, but like, who cares about preserving it or being precious about it? Like, how much bigger can it get? How much further can you go? And I specifically felt our working relationship with Greg Kurstin was very special, mostly because he worked on so much of the record compared to the other producers. He ended up doing 8 of the 10 tracks that ended up making the record. But what I loved about him is he didn't seem to have any sort of hesitations, and any kind of hesitation was almost comical. Like, he would sometimes turn around after a few hours of working and sort of give us this look like, do you guys hate this? And then we would be like, keep going, like I loved his confidence. I really felt like we had sort of like a born leader in him when we were trying to tackle all of these new sounds. And like you said, there's something incredibly pop in the sort of DNA of this record. Like, people keep throwing out Katy Perry and Taylor Swift and these types of things, and I'm like, I think that from an emotional or I don't know, like an ambition level, I think that those things are fair, but we still really wanted to have like some of the quirk and some of the sort of like specific Tegan and Sara-ness. We wanted that to be there too. So yeah, the producers were an important part in helping us get this record off the ground.
It sounds like you wanted them to do a total teardown and rebuild.
I just didn't want them to have any kind of, we can't go in this direction because that's not what you do.
Right.
Like, I kept thinking like, I don't want anyone to be preserving this like idea or these preconceptions, or, we take such big steps in our demos that I just wanted somebody who was willing to sort of like just push us further, and all 3 really didn't seem to have any kind of like hang-ups about, your fans are going to be expecting X, Y, and Z. Like, it was just
that's
more
part
like,
of
who
why
cares?
we picked them, because in the interview process, they were all very complimentary about where we had been, but we're not looking backwards. They were pushing us forward. They were quite insistent that what we were doing deserved to be pushed forward, and that we shouldn't worry too much, and that our fans would stick with us because the songs were great.
All I wanna get is a little bit closer. All I wanna know is, can you come a little closer? Here comes the breath before we get a little bit closer. Here comes the rush before we touch. Come a little closer. The doors are open, the wind is really blowing. The night sky is changing overhead. It's not just our physical. I'm the type who won't get up so critical. So let's make things physical. I will treat you like you're oh so typical. I will treat you like you're oh so typical. All you think of lately is getting underneath me. All I dream of lately.
As this new sound that you were after, and you were after newness, as it was evolving for you in the headphones, what did that feel like?
There were some really exciting days, like where we would come home from the studio and
I was really psyched.
yeah, really psyched, and we were really happy. You could tell we were thrilled and feeling very confident about what we created, and then there are inevitably days where you leave and you're like, what are we doing? What have we done?
But you knew that it was different.
But we knew it was different. Oh yeah, we knew it was
my
different.
God,
We
yeah.
knew we were
I knew
accomplishing.
that like 2 hours into
Oh,
the
yeah,
first
yeah,
day
yeah.
with Greg. I was like, this is going to be so wicked.
There was no denying that we were on uncharted territory, and that we were completely okay with it. But there was just some days where I was like, have we gone too far? Is this going to scare off our fans? Are we making aesthetic and sonic choices here that are going to freak everybody out? Will they be able to hear past the production and hear that these are the best songs we've ever written? I can remember the first time it happening when we were listening to the chorus of Closer, and Sarah and I just looking at each other, and I think I sent a tweet that was something like, we're making some sort of like weird rave metal record or something. It was just so loud in the studio, and I was like, what is happening? But it was great. It was great.
Physical, so let's make things physical. a little closer.
So there you have it. It's the new song and the new sound from Tegan and Sara's new album called Heartthrob. The song Closer. Tegan and Sara are in-studio guests this week on Acoustic Cafe.
The lyrics obviously come from a different place here. You know, people, you talk about your fans, how your fans would react. When we look at the songs themselves, people have always identified with this band as fellow outsiders. Mm-hmm. And, you know, we're all in this together. Or self-deprecating. Mm-hmm. You know, everybody gets in the self-deprecation together. Mm-hmm. And so that has been unified. These songs come on, they're, as you say, they're raw, they're very emotional, they're bold.
Mm-hmm. I like to think that even though, you know, there's still some like you say, there's like some really raw emotion here, and, you know, these songs, at least my set of songs, are not necessarily like, I haven't suddenly cast myself as the hero, or what's his name? Don Juan? That's not me. But I think there is an adult perspective, you know, now that we're in our 30s, there's a sense of empowerment, and I don't feel as victimized when I listen to these songs. You know, like I listen back to some of the stuff from the con, and I'm like, you know, I was a fairly vulnerable, sensitive 20-something, sort of trying to figure out my place in the world, and it's not that there are less turbulent seas now. It's just that I have a more adult infrastructure to sort of view my heartbreak from, and I think that, you know, that will still connect with the current fan base that we have, but I maybe it will offer them sort of like a little bit more confidence, like a different way to view their own heartbreak.
Well, and perhaps it'll usher them into that same area that we're in. Yeah, like
and they're in there too.
They are. They're transitioning too into a time period where they're probably starting to stabilize and get into second or third serious relationship, and there's confidence that comes with that, and I think that this record reflects that.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Between us in our bed, repeat the words that I know we both said. Relax into the knee, we get so comfortable. Remember when our sweet and unexplainable. I just want back into your head. Just want back in your head. I'm not unfaithful, but I'll stray. When I get a little scared, when I get a little scared, when I get a little, when I jerk away from holding hands with you. Well, I know these habits hurt important parts of you. Remember when our sweet and unexplainable. Nothing like this person unlovable. I just want back in your head. Just want back in your head. I'm not unfaithful, but I'll stray. When I get a little scared, when I get a little scared, when I get a little scared, when I get a little run, run, run.
A song originally from an album 5 years ago called The Con. The song is back in your head, performed live in our studios by our guests this week, Tegan and Sara.
As things stand right now, early indication is that Closer is actually a mainstream hit and moving in that direction, which would be precisely what you wanted at this point.
The world is ours.
And after 12 years and 7 albums and worldwide touring, absolutely everything you said you wanted to do at age 19 when we last spoke, does this particular added thing, does that actually produce a thrill, like something new that's fun?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Sara and I have been professionally making music for 14 years, but we started writing when we were 15. So we've clocked 17 years of writing music and playing together and singing together. And, in order to give up, we're at a very precious time in our lives too, early 30s, we're in serious relationships. You start thinking about family and the time that you are missing at home. And so the time that you spend on the road has to be spent in such a way that it feels like you are truly living your dream. You truly have a purpose. You are truly accomplishing something. And I think that we've gotten to a point where we needed not necessarily a bona fide pop hit, but we needed something new to come on the horizon. Like, we started thinking about, what countries haven't we been to yet? When we finished Sainthood, we went to India, and we only played 2 shows, but we were there a week. We brought our mom, we brought 2 of our best friends. I don't want to spend the rest of my life just sitting in the back of a venue. I wanted to see the world. I wanted to meet more people, different kinds of people, experience different kinds of shows, challenge our band to do things we'd never done. I think Sara and I needed that as well. So whether it's a bona fide hit or goes to number 1 or any of these things, it's certainly doing things that we've never experienced before. So we're definitely, we're on the pony. We're riding the Closer pony, and we're like, let's see what happens next.
Sensitive, it's true. Alligator tears cried over you. Over you, over you. Over you, over you. Run around on me, I'd sooner die without. Run around on me, I'd die without. Relentless, yes, it's true. My mode of mouth, it runs over you. Over you, over you. Over you, over you. Run around on me, I'd sooner die without. Run around on me, I'd die without. Over you, over you. Over you, over you. Over you, over you. Over you, over you. Run around on me, sooner die without. Run around on me, I'll die without. No hissy fits, mind my manners. I won't make a scene. Oh, over you. Over you, over you, over you. Over you, over you. Run around on me, I'd sooner die without. Run around on me, I'd die without. Rattled, yes, it's true. Alligator tears, they're spilled over you. Run around on me, sooner die without. Run around on me, I'll die without you. Run around on me, I'd sooner die without. Run around on me, I'll die without. Over you, over you, over you, over you. 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 Over you, over you. Over you, over you.
A song called Alligator from the last album back in 2009 called Sainthood. From our in-studio guests this week, Tegan and Sara. Their new album is called Heartthrob, and you will find that on the Warner Brothers label. And they were joined in this week's appearance by Ted Gowans on guitar and John Spence playing the piano. Thanks for listening to the guest portion of Acoustic Cafe this week. You can hear the whole 2-hour show through our website at acafe.com, or on many of your favorite local radio stations around the country and around the world. And again, you can always follow us on Twitter at A Cafe Radio. I'm your host, Rob Reinhardt. Thanks for listening.